the I whatever. I hope everybody else's phone is on mute. I always put mine on mute. I'm sorry. Anyway, the I thing started with the iMac. And the I part of it was the internet. And one of the old iMac, you know, the gumball-shaped iMac that was really the early days of the internet. And it was, their commercial that they had was, it's a 3-step process to get on the internet. Take it out of the box, plug it in, and oh, there is no third step. You're on the internet like that. And when Steve Jobs came back to Apple after being summarily thrown out, he came back with Next software, which is the basis for our iOS 10 software that we have when he had Next. They called him the iCEO because he was the interim CEO. They didn't name him. They didn't name him the CEO, but they said interim CEO, and they decided to have the moniker iCEO, which I think was really, really good. And the I has kind of, I think it's worn out its welcome a bit. And if you remember, Apple changed from being Apple Computer quite a few years ago to be Apple. Apple Incorporated, which means it's more than just computers now. Just like MacNexus. We have a lot of members, new members coming in that have never had a Mac. They're iPhone or iPad users, and they've never had a Mac. So MacNexus kind of changes its name. We're stuck with Empower Mac, MacNexus and stuff with that, because we can't use the Apple name as a Macintosh users group. We can use the Mac and we can use Apple's logo, but we can't say Apple this or Apple that. So, because that's a trademark thing. But I think what the branding of it is to kind of say that. So the other problem is when the iPhone first came out, that was the big first controversial I. Okay. The iPhone, Cisco had the rights to the word iPhone. And Apple did some deals to get it so they could use iPhone, or sometimes they just do it. And realistically, trademarking it's not that big a deal because everybody knows when you talk about iPhone, you're not talking about Cisco. So they had a voice over internet phone that was called an iPhone because it was an internet phone, right? So the good part of using the Apple logo as the Apple Pay, Apple Watch is the instant branding. Nobody can confuse it, and Apple has that as their trademark, so they can't. Nobody else can take it or use it. But it's hard to search for an Apple logo. In other words, if you search, because as soon as I saw them starting to do this, I immediately went on Google because it hit me. I'm going, well, and first of all, it's Apple, so if you don't have to search for anything Apple does because you're going to know everything they do. But I go, man, that's going to be tough to search for Apple Watch or Apple Pay. So when I put the logo in Apple, it came up just Apple Watch or Apple Pay just came up with just those words. So I think it's wise and I think it's great. But also remember, if you look at any Apple product, they don't play on the logos really hard. The front of your iPhone and your iPad has no logos on it anywhere at all. A Samsung phone will say Samsung on the front, and will probably say it on the back. So Apple just has never really run that game on that. So does that answer your question on that, or the comment, which was a great comment?
You said it seems like it really must be universally recognizable.
Oh, it is. It's one of the most recognizable brands there is. You know, it used to be Nike was Nike and Coca-Cola, and I'm sure Apple's up there now too. But yeah, I mean, it's there, but I think it's the Apple's done a good job. They started with the iPods with the white earbuds. Anybody that had white earbuds, they knew that they were using an iPod. Little things like that they do that just kind of make them stand out. So speaking of the Apple logo, and on MacNexus we were using that because it's like for the class I said Apple Watch. So if you're on our computer, and let's just go, actually I'll go to my notes here. So I'm in notes, and I want to make these little Apple logos. So on your Mac, it's hang on, Option-Shift-K. Option-Shift-K makes the Apple logo. Okay. because it wasn't used. Option Shift K makes the Apple logo. So,
Capital or lowercase?
just Option Shift K, because the shift is the uppercase. Option Shift K. So I'm going to hold down Option. Now, you guys know when you hit the Shift key, if you want to do capital H, you hold the Shift key down and then hit the letter H. You don't try to hit them both at the same time. Well, Control, Command, and Option are also modifier keys. You hold them down and then do whatever other key you need, because you don't have to try time it like that. So I hold down Option, hold down Shift, and hit the letter K, and it creates an Apple logo. Now, what I did, though, is I wanted to, because I'm going to, like in the newsletter and the President's Column stuff, I'm going to be using this a lot. I'm going to be using Apple Watch and Apple Pay. So I'm going to show you, and you're going to love this, on the Mac, but I'm going to show you how to do it on your iOS device. When I type AAW, it automatically comes up Apple Watch. If I type AAP, it comes up Apple Pay.
That's something you programmed in?
Yep, I'm going to show you how to do it really quick. So you guys will want, we're going to go through it fairly quickly, but I'm going to go through it, I'm going to show you how to do it here because it ties into your iOS device. So if I go to System Preferences, Keyboard, Text, and I've done down here, so I'm going to create a new, so what I did here, so I'll create a new one. Let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 5 apples, let's say. I could do Apple Watch. What's the next thing going to come out? Apple Home. Okay? So I want to actually change that. I should make that AAH. But anyway, so I created these text shortcuts by hitting the plus. I type in what I want. AAH is Option Shift K, Home. Okay? Actually, I have Apple TV. Let's do, I'll do Home first. H-O-M-E. So then I hit Return. So now, if I type AAH anywhere, it will pop up and try substitute Apple Home. So let's go back to my notes. AAH, it suggests Apple Home. If I hit Return, it accepts it. If not, if I really want AAH, the letters you choose should not be letters you normally use. For instance, you'll notice that when I wanted to get an Apple logo, I did 3A or 4 A's because I may have to type in AAA, you know, like AAA thing, and it wouldn't do that. It'd say Apple. So now I just accept that. And what was the other one? I did 3 apples
TV.
there. And did I do TV?
No.
I didn't do ATV. So it'd be like, I don't want to probably do ATV. I could probably do ATV because I don't ride an all-terrain vehicle very often. So anyway, once I've done this, I've got this in notes, right? So let me go over to my iOS device. And get it on the screen for you. One sec. Come on, baby. Oh, but I'm on a different Wi-Fi network. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So now, if I go into Settings, Notes. Oh, no, excuse me. I'm going to Notes. So if I go to my MacNexus class notes, you'll notice I have Apple Home down there. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to highlight just the Apple logo. Okay? I've highlighted the Apple logo, so I'm going to copy it to my clipboard. It was in my notes, so it synced back and forth. I made it with Option Shift K here. It's in my notes, so now I've copied it. Now if I go over to Settings, And it's so funny. I developed this 2 days later. One of the magazines, iMore, somebody out came out and showed how to do it because I didn't want to keep typing it all the time, and so I came up with it, and they came up with the exact way. And I'll see if I can find a link for that. But if I go into General and Keyboard, Shortcuts, I'm going to hit Shortcuts. And I can go down here, and there's my list of them. See, I've already got them, but I'm going to hit a new one. Phrase is, so I'm going to type in, I'm going to do AATV, and I'm going to paste. So you see how I did that? This means when I type AATV, it will autofill Apple TV, okay? So I'm going to hit Save. Now I'm going to go back to Notes here, and I'm going to simply type, and unfortunately Siri won't do it yet, so I'm going to type AATV, return, it's probably not on there yet. Let's try that. No, let's try Apple Pay, AAP. Yeah, so it does Apple Pay there. But I think it's just because I just added it, it needs to go through. If I shut Notes down and then fire Notes back up. So I've made that keyboard shortcut here. I can do, with these keyboard shortcuts, you could put your address in there or some phrases you use a lot and make a couple little keywords that will, like you could have a home address or work address. So you could go www.work, and it pulls up your work address. It doesn't have to be just a couple letters. It can be a tremendous amount of letters. So, all right, so that's a quick little shortcut thing on that, which I did have on my notes to do anyway. So refer to the, and if you email me, I'll try to find the link for it. Go ahead.
Is that Apple logo with the option for you're using?
Yes. So
email like 12-point font comes in one size, you're using 16-point font.
Keith asks a very good question. Is it scalable? It is, in fact, a font. So I can blow it up as big as I want, and it looks perfect, and bring it back down as little as I want because it's a font. It's the equivalent of another letter. It's like, you have those characters where you have arrows and the copyright sign and things like that. It's a font, so it's fully scalable. Now, you're going to hear some stuff out there about some malware on an Apple. You're going to hear about some Java stuff out there. There are some things that are kind of floating around, but it's highly unlikely anything would happen to any of you guys. This one exploit was something that some virus company decided to make up to scare people, to sell more virus things. There's a new one going around, but it's only if people go. Does anybody here go to Reddit? Okay, you're all safe then. So Reddit is an online thing, and I'm pretty online, and I don't even use Reddit. So Reddit's just one of these news sites, and it was a way. There was an exploit that could be found, but it's highly unlikely that anybody would have anything from it. So the best thing to do with that is just make sure you keep all your software updated on your Mac, and nothing can affect your iPhone or your iPad, and nothing really can affect your Mac. Security-wise, passwords. Passwords are going to become more and more important because with Apple Pay coming, which we're going to talk about, you could essentially go pay for a car with your iPhone. And you'd kind of like it to be you, not someone else paying for their car with your iPhone. So you'll want to have a good fingerprint reader and stuff. And I'm going to go through that when we go into Apple Pay. But Apple...
Before you move on, once you create one of these shortcuts on one iOS device, does it transfer to all iOS?
Yeah, it should sync to all your iOS devices. And in fact, I've found that sometimes they sync from the Mac to the iOS device, but I wanted to show how to do it both ways. The problem is there's no way to make the Apple logo on the iOS device, so you either send it to yourself from an email, or I did it with syncing with Notes because that logo isn't available as a character on, I'm sure there's an emoji keyboard for it, but it's not available on the iOS device. So you have to get just the logo over, and even though you copy and paste it, you're not taking a photo of it, you're in fact copying and pasting that font, so it's still fully scalable. Okay? Good question on that. All right, so there's privacy and there's security, and they're not the same thing. Privacy is your stuff. You know, we heard about this data breach, and it wasn't a data breach. What happened is these celebrities that happen to have nude photos of themselves on their iPhones and actually on Androids, and there's not been proven that it was an iCloud breach, but what happened is they had very weak passwords. And I'm not saying this is how it happened. Let's say Paris Hilton, I don't know what her new dog's name is, but let's say they used Paris Hilton. Everybody knows everything. No, excuse me. A lot of people know everything about these celebrities, so what they do is they social engineer. When we make up passwords, we usually use something that we can remember what it is, like my dog's name, street I used to live on, something like that. Well, our stuff isn't out there that everybody knows the 3 houses we've lived in and everything else, whereas the celebrities, everybody knows everything about them, so they're able to go into social engineer and figure out what passwords they use and just keep trying. Well, what happened was one part of Apple, to make it more convenient for all of us, made it so you could keep trying your password multiple times. Okay? Which is good if you don't remember your password, but it's bad if somebody's trying to crack your password. Okay? So because of this, it's become a little less convenient for us. And there's this constantly sliding scale between convenience and security. And I have a password thing that I'll write up here on the board in a minute here that I really think is good. But that's security. The other is privacy. We're becoming more and more dependent on the cloud, and the way you have to look at it, in the old days when you had big old computers and you worked in an office, there was the computer room, and we knew it was a special room that had wicked good air conditioning, it had a raised floor and all this other stuff, and everybody's desk didn't have a computer, they had a terminal and a keyboard, right? You were using that big old computer, the AS400 that was back in the back office. Well, we've progressed, because now we're doing the same thing with the cloud. It's this big computer that sits up there, and your iOS device or your Mac is accessing your information on that. Even though it's a standalone computer, it's for doing your photos and everything else, but your information, your address book, your notes, your reminders, your calendar, etc., are up on this. And that's a beautiful thing because it makes all your devices sync. Back in the day, we only used to have one computer to worry about. And then we got 2 Macs, and then we had we sync those. Then we got an iPhone, then we got an iPad, and now we got an Apple TV, and soon we're going to have an Apple Watch. And so these things all have to sync. So it happens via the cloud. But the cloud itself is you're part of the cloud. You have a sequestered little spot that's only yours, and that gets protected by your Apple password, your Apple ID password. But the other thing we have to worry about, since Snowden and the NSA revelations, is how secure is our privacy or our data on those. Apple is making a stance. Apple was one of the first companies to do what's called the canary in the coal mine statement. They made this a year ago. And the NSA would not allow them to tell how many inquiries they had from the NSA to check people's data out, to check their phone records and things like that. The cell companies will give them the phone records all they want. That's how they catch all these murderers and things like that. But Apple made a stance and they said, okay, we're going to tell everybody how many NSA inquiries we've responded to. NSA said, no, you can't give them a number. So Apple said, we'll give you a range. So last year, Apple said they had between 0 and 250 inquiries from the NSA, or from government. That's not too many. Well, this year, they didn't disclose it. So what that means is that's the canary in the coal mine saying, okay, NSA has told us we can't disclose anything and we can't talk about not disclosing anything, so you didn't see it in the report. So the canary has now died, right? The coal mine has got gas in it. So Apple says, let's lock everything down. We're not going to keep certain stuff on the servers, because then it's like if I have an empty box sitting right there and it says methamphetamine on the outside, but it's an empty box. Well, if somebody shows up and they say, I want to search that box that says meth, if it's a cop, go ahead, search that box. I know it's empty. So what Apple's doing is saying, look, that stuff's either not there or we're encrypting it and even Apple doesn't have the key, which means you're the only one that can access it, or someone that has your Apple ID, which you're not going to give away, or has your fingerprint. So Apple has doubled down on privacy, and consequently Google's looking at it and they're doing Me Too. They're saying, okay, well, we can do that too. Well, the problem is Google wants all your information. And this is not a knock on Google. I have a contract with Google. I use Gmail, I use their other services for free, and they're able to use my information to let people, advertisers, not the government, but advertisers know what's up and also target things for me. That's the deal I made with them, and that's fine. There's maybe certain things I don't want that to happen. Google makes all that money they make by advertising. They give their phone software away, so they're not making any money on that, but the more people that use their phone software, the more people do it. That's why Apple's kind of getting away from, you're going to use what's called DuckDuckGo as a new search thing, which doesn't track you or do anything like that. Google lets you know, though, that they're doing this, so that's important. And I trust Google, but they have different motives. Apple makes a lot of money, and they don't make money by you, by selling your data, by tracking you, by doing anything like that. So they say, hey, look, you paid the Apple tax. You paid extra money for the Apple product. That's how we make our money. We don't need to sell your information to anyone. They're good stewards of your information, and they're all about you. They're the only company in tech that I know of that's about you as the consumer and the user of the device. And they say, hey, let's make sure this stays sacred. So you can totally trust it if it's with Apple, and even more so now because they're taking a stance against this. So they've really locked it down. iMessage, for instance, you know you have text messages and then you have iMessage. iMessage, no one can read. Only the recipient and you. It's totally encrypted end to end. There is no way anything. Now, obviously, if you're a terrorist or if you're in the mob, that's the one you're going to start using. But you know what? Don't call us all guilty and hurt us because of a few people that want to use it for that. They're going to find ways to do it anyway, whether it's smoke signals or tin cans with strings, you know. So I think it's a great stance, and I think it's a great thing from Apple. This privacy thing is huge, and this is on Apple's side. It's under privacy. It's really, to me, that was one of the most compelling things. And you remember, as we get into Apple Pay, which is one of the last things we're going to talk about today, Apple Pay, you're going to start using your credit card with Apple Pay and stuff. Your privacy even goes farther than that, where when you check out, that retailer doesn't know who the heck you are. So only if you give them the little rewards coupon thing or give them your little phone, and that's up to you. And that's all data collection, and that's a deal. You get a special deal. You get a discount if you give them your rewards card. So anyway, that's it. I did want to bring up. You know, I'm not a big Facebook person. I pretty much just read on Facebook. I post some of my sunsets on there. But, and I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, and considering privacy and security, I mean, Facebook's the whole other end of it. But we have a MacNexus part on there, and Al has been posting quite a bit on MacNexus for a lot of different things, like here was a heads up about Tara's class today. But Al's been linking a lot of these articles that are great Mac articles, and you should, if you get a chance. I mean, these are fantastic, and thank you very much, Al, for doing that. It's very. I read the stuff, and I just never have time to post it, and I'm glad that you do because now I don't feel guilty. So, anyway, that's all up there. Again, Facebook is kind of its own thing, so don't. I'm not telling you to get on Facebook, but it's also been a great avenue for us to communicate to members, and we have quite a few people on there. And in fact, there's been quite a few people doing problem solving back and forth. You know, if I get a chance, if somebody posts a question up there, I try to respond whenever I can. But other people, we've got, you know, we're the collective. We have 600 members in MacNexus. It's a great way to do that, more so than the old message boards, where hardly any people went into the old message boards at the website.
Ken,
Yes?
I have a question about Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, and I have had trouble.
You have a life then.
But I can't seem to get to your page on Facebook, and I know I should be able to.
Not unless you're a Facebook member is the problem.
No, is that right? Because I've been.
Facebook doesn't sell you hardware. They want to rent your eyeballs.
Yeah.
And they can't, if you don't sign up with them, they don't know who you are in your eyeballs, so they can't rent them. You can throw them weird in. You don't have to give them all your real information, but that's up to you. So I don't want to get into the whole Facebook thing. Again, I never post what I'm doing. I post, like I say, sunrise and sunset shots. I'll see some people. I've run into some old friends and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I have confidence in Google. I don't have confidence in Facebook. So, and I'm sure that Tara or somebody will do some Facebook class. If you ever want to learn about Facebook, find the youngest person you know, and they'll tell you all about it. But even now, the younger kids are going away from Facebook and some alternatives too. So, I mean, come on. We remember back in the day we had, what was it called? MySpace? Or what was it MySpace? And then, like, as soon as Facebook came out, it just died. So, you know, that's what's interesting about this is Facebook could die like that also. And they have to be careful, and they have to manage how they're doing things because their overarching ability to kind of send information out there can be bad. All right.
I went to find MacNexus on Facebook to find friends, but it didn't come up. A couple of people whose last names Nexus came up. But what do I...
Are you on Facebook?
I am.
You may have to, I think we had to close the group out or something, so if you find Al or Ken Spencer, just look for Ken Spencer on there or Tara Frost. She'd probably be an easier one to find because her name is unique. There's a few Ken Spencers out there. T-A-R-A-H Frost, and she can get you in on that. So enough of the Facebook, please. I don't want to. All right. October 16th. Anybody know what's going on? You're going to... Well, it's not an official announcement. They only announce a week before, so everybody has to pay for really expensive airfare to come out to the event. It appears that we'll get probably Yosemite for the Mac, which is the new operating system, which has this great interoperability with iOS 8. So that's why we're only going to talk about iOS 8 today, not Yosemite. Also, indications are we'll get a new iPad. Now, if we think about the phones for a second, it's called a tick-tock cycle. We had the original 3G phone. Then we had the 3GS the next year. Then we had the 4, then the 4S. Then we had the 5, then the 5S. We just got the 6, and what do you think we'll get a year from now? 6S, probably. The iPads, except for the very first one, we had the iPad 2 came out. Then a year later, they updated that to the 3 and the 4, kind of. They were both about the same. And then that's when they introduced the iPad mini. So the mini and the full-size iPad are off cycle by 1 year. So last year, we got the iPad mini Retina, which was the S model of the iPad mini. And we got the new iPad Air, which was a new design. So Apple seems to be sticking to every 2 years of a product, they get a new hardware, and we think that you'll see a new version of the iPad mini, and the iPad Air will probably just be updated probably with a fingerprint reader, And secondly, there is some rumors, and it may not be till after the first year, of a 12 or 12.5-inch iPad. Now, coupled with that, and I've not read this anywhere, and something tells me, there's also rumors about a 12-inch MacBook. They didn't say MacBook Air, and they didn't say MacBook Pro. So if we're looking at about a 12.5-inch iPad, and we're looking at a 12 or 12.5-inch MacBook, oh, what if it's both? You heard it here first. Now, if Pete predicts it, it will. If he predicts it, if he says it won't happen, it will. That's how he has a 100% record on that. So. But I'm also the guy who, when the iPod first came out, says, "Oh my God, they'll never sell any of those." So, all right. But there was also talk of a Retina version of the iMac. Not like that screen's not luscious enough you could lick it as it is, but a fuller, higher resolution, which would be like 4K. 4K is the super high definition. So indications are, but the best part about that is that monitor would be very expensive for the iMac, so they would probably still offer the current iMacs, which of course are terrible at the current resolution. You know, they don't look very good at all. So if you feel really bad about yours and you want to get the new one and you feel really bad that the old one, I'm sure I can find some way to take it off your hands for you. I'll even come pick it up. So, but also what we're lacking is an update to the Apple Monitor, and because they have the new Mac Pros which support 4K. So if they do a 4K iMac, they're probably going to do a 4K cinema display, studio display, whatever they're going to call it. But October 16th is what they think the date will be. To be honest, what they're waiting for on like MacBook Pros is there's a new processor coming out from Intel that was supposed to be out already called the Broadwell chip, and it's not ready yet. It may not be ready till after the first of the year, and there's no reason to bring out a new version of the MacBook Pro until that processor comes out. It will extend battery life and increase performance dramatically. All right, so iOS 8 we're going to talk about in a sec, but I'm going to talk about phones for a second here. Now, who here is upgrade ready? In other words, they're out of contract and ready to upgrade their phone. Okay? And is size a question? Okay? Size matters in this case, I guess. It's funny, and I was talking with Gail this morning. By the way, who will be our speaker at this the general meeting? Gail founded MacNexus 30 years ago this month, and thank you, Gail. Anyway, I got the big one too. She got the big one, and for me, it was a matter of being able to see the zoom. But I really got it because I do a lot of photography with my big Canon hardware, but I also do a lot of iPhone photography when I'm doing sunrises and sunsets, and there's some apps I use for that. But this has a camera inside it that's optical stabilization. In fact, it can move to make sure it doesn't shake and shutter. So that's the advantage of this over the regular 6. The 6 being a 4.7 inch and this being a 5.5 inch, which seemed like a lot, but I'm getting used to it. And I was never a one-hand texter anyway. And for instance, in my car, I mount mine. I have this little Garmin thing that mounts to my dash, and my phone slides into it, and I use it as my GPS, and so everything's bigger with that. And this is a great device so I can see that zoomed in. But for me, it's almost too big a text when I'm up close in what's called zoom mode, which we'll talk about in a second, and I'll show you on the screen. But the 5S is essentially free. The 6 is $199, and the 6 Plus is $299 if you're going to do on contract. But as I've done in my previous classes, and they're on the recordings there, if you're off contract, it's also the time to look at your carrier and see. You might want to pay for a phone, and you'll save money over 2 years if you go with another different carrier. T-Mobile, AT&T, by the way, if you're a heavy data user on AT&T, they just doubled the amount of data you get per month. If you are on a 15 gigabyte shared plan, they've just doubled it up to the end of this month to 30 gigs of data. So Sprint, which has pretty limited coverage, just announced an unlimited iPhone plan for $50 a month. So, but there's a lot of other carriers out there, Virgin Mobile and stuff. The way to find out what plans there are is go to Whistle Out, right here, whistleout.com. And you can configure your needs right here, and it'll kind of show you what you want. I do have this linked at kenspencer.com. In fact, we'll go there right now to show you. So if I go to kenspencer.com and you click on classes, I have all the videos of my classes, but here's all the new iPhone plans. So I have the keynote slides that I did. Here's Whistle Out, and then the hour-long or hour-and-a-half-long class about it right here. So kenspencer.com. And today's class, when I get, I'll probably upload it late tonight or tomorrow, and it'll be up there too, everything that we're recording. All right, so back to the phone sizes. Actually, you know what I should just do is, did I do, oh, no, I didn't do the whole keynote, never mind. Anyway, so these are these all kinds of different, it can get really confusing. And this was what, less than a month ago, and these plans have changed by now, I'm sure. So it's a moving target. What I recommend is going to clarkhoward.com. This is another podcast I highly recommend. Clark Howard is the nicest radio talk show host you'll ever hear. It's a call-in show. It's all about retirement. It's all about finances. It's all about tech. And you know, this guy is very well versed. And I'm a very frugal person. He's more frugal than me because he won't buy an iPhone, but his daughter and his wife have iPhones. But he, anyway, he's a wonderful, wonderful talk show host. But they keep up on the plans. But you know what? I read this stuff voraciously about all the Apple stuff, and you know what? He stays up on top of it. He's really, really good, and he's just the nicest guy. Clark Howard, clarkhoward.com, and then so if you subscribe to his podcast. He does a new show. He used to be on in the mornings here, but they've replaced him with Dave Ramsey, who's fairly abrasive. And he's not as good. Dave Ramsey just says, oh, get rid of this and that. But anyway, that's clarkhoward.com. And he tries to keep up to date as much as possible on cell phone plans. And again, he's great about all financial things. Travel things. He used to own a travel agency. And he retired, and now he does this because it's fun. And he just takes it. And if you ever hear advertisements on there, he does not endorse a single person. He never endorses anybody. So the ads are their own. They have nothing to do with him or what he endorses. So, all right. Question on that? Okay. So the phone sizes. So you have the original iPhone and the iPhone 4 or 3 were 3.7-inch diagonally. That was fine back then. God, this feels so small now after using the new one. So they're 4.7-inch diagonal screen measurement, all right? Then the iPhone 5S is 4 inches diagonally. By the way, this one's for sale. Never touched by human hands. Always had a case on it since day one and a screen protector on it. And you have the option of getting 1 additional year of Apple Care on it for $50. It's $360 because that's what Amazon will give me. If you want it, you can buy it off me for that. I have an external battery case for it and stuff. It's locked to AT&T, so it will only work on AT&T or Straight Talk AT&T. But if you're on AT&T and you're off contract, do not buy this phone, because you can go get a 5S for free or for $99, okay? So this is only for people that want to get a phone and can't renew their contract or want to get a full price phone so you pay less. Again, everybody came up to me last time, okay, I want to buy it. I says, well, are you off contract? Yeah, I'm off contract. Well, don't buy my phone for $360. You can get it for $99 and get a brand new one, okay? So I'm not trying to screw people over on that, but there are people that want phones without having to have a contract. So anyway, that's available. See me afterwards. Don't line up too fast, okay? Now, speaking of that, I want to go to a website called Flipsy. and Flipsy.com. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to show you what my iPhone 5S is worth. Now, I already locked in my price with Amazon, so if I send it to Amazon, I get a little more, but I'm not ashamed to show you here. So I'm going to click iPhone 5S, and I'm going to say it's an AT&T. It's the gray version, and it's 32 gigs. And this will show me the offers. Look at that. Amazon, they'll give me a store credit of $385. The one I have locked in says $400 because I locked it in before the new phone came out. There's Best Buy cash offer, $240. Amazon trade-in, keep going down. I want to look for, oh, see, Gazelle isn't here, and some of the others. But another one's called Gazelle. But this will give you an idea what your phones are worth. Obviously, with Amazon, it's just I get value at Amazon. It's a store credit. Hey, I'm going to use that over a year's time. I'll use that much. So that's Flipsy. FLIPSY.com. It's a great site. Oh, and yeah, so like new, which was what mine was. Private party, where's that? So private party, it says my phone's worth $500 if I were to sell it outright to someone. Okay, that phone, because I have the 32 gig, that phone retailed for $750. I bought it for $299 because of contract. All right. What we're going to do is go into, got my iPhone 6 Plus, and the beauty of the 6 and the 6 Plus is you have what's called zoom mode. So let me get into, so you can see my screen and it'll actually record it. Here we go. Come on, baby. Here we go. So that's this is in regular zoom mode. And what's interesting is on the 6 Plus, which is 5.5 inches, when I turn it sideways, my dock changes, similar to an iPad. Okay, so that's normal, horizontal. Now let's go to a calendar. I'm going to make you all sick with this. So there's a normal, now the calendar mode is nice because it's got more information on it, but if I go sideways, I get the calendar on one side and the list on the other. If I go to mail, normally it's like this. This is what we're used to, but then it has the iPad style mode where you've got the table of contents on one side and back and forth. Now, that's the different menus only apply to the 6 Plus. The regular 6 will look like it. But on both of them, I have the option of doing what's called display zoom. So I'm going to walk you through this. I go into settings. Right here, settings. And I go down to display and brightness. And now I have view. Okay? Because before you could make text bigger, but what this is going to do is zoom in my entire screen. For instance, when I mount this in my car for my GPS, I want it bigger for text. For me, when I'm using it, the text size is fine, but it's kind of a trade-off. I think Apple in a new iteration of this will make it so you can swap between the two pretty well. But I'm going to take this and hit from standard. Now, when I go into this, it gives me a demo of what zoomed looks like and what regular looks like. So here's my main screen in standard mode. Here's what it would look like in zoom mode. So we'll go back and forth. See, a little bit. Zoom mode just makes them bigger. Now let's go to the next screen and show you what text messages look like in zoom mode, standard mode, zoom mode. But more importantly, mail. So you'll notice the size of the text, and you'll notice I've got down to her elbow, for instance. But if I go to zoom mode, I'm losing less real estate, but the text is larger. That's the most definitive way to tell, okay? These are not my emails. These are just sample pages that Apple shows you what the difference between zoomed and regular is. Now, when you go to zoom mode, it restarts your phone. When you switch back, you have to restart it the other way. So for right now, I'm going to leave it in unzoomed mode. But I use the zoom mode in my car most of the time. Were you using Zoom or not Zoom?
No.
Yeah. Who else has a Plus? Anybody? Okay. Anybody else have a 6? Okay. It has zoom mode also. It's not an option, I don't think. In fact, I'll fire it up and see. I don't think it's an option. Go ahead. The camera is the same, except the 6 Plus has the camera lens floats and it has optical image stabilization. So in other words, what it does is, in this phone we have a gyro. In this phone we have an accelerometer. And those two combined can sense movement and it will adjust the camera accordingly. Our other one has digital image stabilization, which is quite good. So it's not like it's really a slacker. But for me, it was just a difference in the bigger phone. I wanted it for in my car to have a little bit bigger text. So the 6 Plus was the way to go. But to be honest, I could have gone either way. But what's really funny is when I pick up my old phone, Pete described it. I sent a text to him the other day because he was waiting for his phone. I said, "You finally get your phone?" He goes, "Yeah, I got my new 6 Plus, and my iPhone 5S feels like a Nano." I mean, it's just feels. And I can't believe I was so satisfied with this back then. I don't know. Let me do something here. I'm going to check on. I think I have iOS8 running on this. The bendable thing is not an issue at all. It's a bunch of hoopla over nothing. So, all right, I'm glad you brought it up. Let's talk about bendable. I think it's crazy, first of all, to put your phone in your back pocket. Especially with these women's and these slim jeans where half of it's hanging out. Oh, you have to be a really good pickpocket to be able to get your phone at that point, right? Apple sold 10 million phones the first weekend. So far, 13 people have been brought back bent phones. But some guy on YouTube, because everything on the internet's true, some guy on YouTube decided to do a video, and he's making a bunch of money off of the 1.4 million hits that it got. Anything can bend. I can bend a MacBook Air. I can bend an iPad. I can bend an iPhone 5. I can bend an iPhone 4. It's been shown that the iPhone 6 Plus, there are lots of other phones that bend easier. Okay? And believe it or not, the 6 bends easier than the 6 Plus, even though it's smaller. Consumer Reports did a test on it. I don't like any of these people's testing techniques because they're taking something like this and putting it like that. Unless I have a roll of quarters in my back pocket pushing on the screen when I sit down, it's not an impact test. It's a whole flex over the whole thing. So
they had one on TV, and it took.
If it bleeds, it leads, right, on the news?
No, this was a test, and they took 90 pounds.
But 90 pounds right in the middle is not anything.
That's right.
They had another test where a guy ran over this with a car and nothing happened to it.
Yeah.
A car is considerably more than 90 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's how you do the pressure and the impact. It can bend. Apple will take care of it. If you're really worried, do like I do, especially now because I bought the 128 gigabyte iPhone 6 Plus, which cost a lot of money. For 99 bucks, I got Apple Care Plus, which is the same price you would pay for Apple Care Plus on a 5S that's $400 less. So I don't always look at warranties like that, but since I resell my devices, I can carry Apple Care over to the next person, and to me that's a great thing I can offer them. But if you're worried about it, get Apple Care Plus. It covers breakage. Doesn't cover loss. And by the way, I just found out something. If you use, and I don't know if any other ones do it, but if you use your Wells Fargo signature credit card from your Wells Fargo account, your Visa card, to pay your cell phone bill in its entirety, they give you $600 of coverage, up to $600 value. $600 is almost a new phone, yeah. And you can supplement the rest of it, and it covers theft, and damage, but doesn't cover loss. So don't lose your phone, have it stolen.
For how long does that last?
For as long as you pay your bill with that credit card. It came in a little flyer with my credit card statement. That's great. That was the Wells Fargo, and I know I have the signature Visa card or whatever the signature card. It was a flyer in this month's one. So anyhow, I read the fine print. You know, I got the magnifying glass out and saw, and so I go, cool. So I'm kind of covered both ways because the one thing Apple Care Plus doesn't cover is loss or theft. Theft. But it does cover damage. With Apple Care Plus, if I hurt my phone and replace it, I pay I think it's a $69 deductible, and you have 2 incidents. Because it's so people don't keep just going through it. I mean, Apple makes money on that, but it's not designed as a big profit center. They just want to make it easy. So mine's in a case all the time. Mine's got a screen protector on it, but you know, I've never hurt any of my iPhones, but just knowing I have that coverage makes me feel better because I use it so much. I don't worry about it. Yeah, I put a case on it. I take all the precautions. But there's a company called Square Trade that's excellent, and they do cover loss. Square Trade is fantastic. Don't get suckered into the ones from the cell phone companies, because good luck making a claim. And that's a one from Clark Howard will tell you that. So what kind of screen protection do I have on it? Well, I had to buy mine before the iPhone 6 Plus was out because mine never leaves the store without anything on it. So I had to, the one I got isn't very good. But what you want to make sure is you get what's called PET, and it's hard Mylar, because a lot of people get these ones that are kind of rubbery, and all their thing is about gestures on the phone, and your finger goes, it keeps sticking. You have to get a good screen protector, and do not get the anti-glare screen protectors. The only ones the Apple Store sell right now are the anti-glare protectors, because they don't show your fingerprints. That's nice. But by being anti-glare, this beautiful high-resolution screen now has all these little pixels on it to make it anti-glare. I mean, it's like looking. It's exactly like trying to watch your TV through a screen door. It's terrible. Do not get the anti-glare. Now, they make some out there you can find on Amazon. If you guys email me, I can show you some of the ones I get. But the iPhone screen itself is what's called oleophobic. It's oil resistant. It's still going to smudge up and stuff, but you know, it really only shows it when it's off. And you just wipe it down and it's fine. This is the old technique everybody does, you know, to take your phone and just...
What was that feature you mentioned earlier?
Oleophobic?
No,
PET. It's a certain type of plastic that's a hard Mylar type plastic rather than a rubbery plastic. The rubbery plastics are just, you go to slide and your finger sticks. It doesn't work well at all. So if you get one of those, just I don't recommend it. So we covered displays. All right, so now we're going to get into iOS 8, and we'll take that up to the break, and then after that I'm going to talk about Apple Watch and Apple Pay. Go ahead.
On the iPhone 6, why did it not have a 32 gig? It went right from 16.
Good question.
Yeah.
Don't look at it like they don't have a 32 gig. Look at it for the price of a 32 gig, they give you 64. And for the price of 64, they give you 128. And to be honest, you, and I'll bet you a lot of other people are trying to upgrade to iOS 8, and it says, you're out of room, sorry. Right? You can't add on more room. And don't buy the phone for what you need now. Buy the phone for what you need 2 years from now. To me, the $100 upgrade before from 16 to 32 was, yeah, some people need that. Now, everyone needs it. The lady that called me earlier, I recommended to her that she go take her phone back because it's virtually full already and get a 64 gig. And part of the reasons for it is we now have a more capable camera in here. It doesn't take higher resolution photos, which is fine because megapixels doesn't mean anything. It's, you know, you could get a car with really skinny tires and have 500 horsepower, but if it can't get that power to the road, it makes no difference, right? But you can tell everybody you have 500 horsepower. No, that's about how megapixels are. It's how useful they are. Apple very much gets a lot out of those photos. But we now have what's called super slow motion. You can take photos. Normal video is 30 frames a second. If you take a video at 60 frames a second, when you play it back, it's at half speed and it's very smooth motion, right? You know, the karate kick thing or whatever. But now you can go to 240 frames per second. I'm sorry, 120. Yeah. It's not 240, is it? It's 120, isn't it? So, and that will mean you're using 4 times as much space when you're making a movie. And it's higher resolution than it was before, so that's going to take up a lot of room. There's just things that take up room in there. So the 64 to me for the extra $100. And now you got to remember it too, they're only renting your money because of that $50, you're going to get, I'm sorry, of that $100, you'll probably get $50 back when you resell it. Because it's worth more, a 64 gig will be worth more than a 16 gig. So you're paying $100 up front more, but you're going to get 50 of it back roughly.
Where do you check to see how much memory you use?
I'll show you. So here on the screen, we go to the settings, and we go to general. And one is to go to about. And right here it shows I have available 83 gigabytes of 114. Now, this is a 128 gig phone, but the software takes up some. So if the software takes up, we'll call it 4 gigabytes, let's say.
Says 7 up there. 114.
Yeah, but it's, I'll have to look on that because it shouldn't be. That's surprising because it used to only take up on the old phones. Anyway, let's say 6 gigabytes. Well, if the software that runs the phone takes up 6 gigabytes of 16, what's that leave you? 10. If the software that takes up 6 gigabytes of your 64 gigabytes, what's that leave you? So in other words, the added space you get full utilization of. And I think the amount that this takes up will lessen as they refine the iOS8, by the way. Also, you know, I have quite a few applications in here. No, I don't have over 1,000 apps. I have 1,200 photos, but I have 994 apps. Most of those free because I'm a real cheap person. Hang on one sec. Let's get this. Excuse the. Okay, I gotta redo this. Oh, good, we're back up. But I want to show you, oops. I want to show you where to go also to show you your usage. So let me get my, yeah, it's coming back up now. Because I plugged in the headphone jack. So if I go back into settings and I go down to usage, it will now show me when I go to manage storage, it'll show me what on my phone is using what amount. Okay? So photos and camera, podcasts, I have a lot of podcasts in here, as I said, the different applications. And these are actually the applications, not the actual documents in those applications. So my big violators, it's filling in. I have nothing in GarageBand. That's the full app of GarageBand, which if you don't have in your iOS device, you should. It's way cool. And this is from a non-music person. All right. So before the class, she approached me about upgrading her phone to iOS 8. First of all, if you have an iPhone 4, you can't.
You can or cannot?
Can't. If you have an iPhone 4S, you can, but it doesn't mean you should.
Can you go back?
No. There's no going back. But if you've already made the plunge, it'll get a little faster and a little better when you get to 8.1. If you're on a 4S or something and you're not going to upgrade your phone to a new phone, first of all, if you're on a 4S, you're probably off contract, so there's no reason in the world not to upgrade because you can resell your phone too. An iPhone 4S is probably worth $80 to $100. So that pays for a 5S, doesn't it, on contract. So if you're off contract, get rid of that thing. I'm sorry, but it's just the reality. But iOS 8 takes a little. The 4S doesn't have the processor to really crunch it. But I think once they refine it, maybe when they come out with 8.1, you could do it if you need to. But other than that, it's a tough upgrade. It'll work. And has anybody here have a 4S they've upgraded to iOS 8? And wants to talk? Is it working fine?
Yes, it is.
So there. So I guess I'm the same thing as the guy that bends the phones. I only hear about the bad things. But it's working fine for her. So, you know, it's just be forewarned on that. And the other thing I do is I make sure that if I have any mission critical apps, like I have an invoicing app I use, I have a couple other apps that are mission critical for what I did. Before I upgrade, well, actually I didn't upgrade my old iPhone 5S yet, but I've kept that up just to make sure things would run, because if 8 broke something in an app and it's mission critical for me, that would be bad. So.
I just have one question. When I first did it, I was very upset because my laptop, my desktop, I can't upgrade that, and it says that iCloud's not compatible, and so I'm thinking that if I put something in my calendar here, that it would not.
It wouldn't have done it in iOS 7 anyway.
Oh yeah.
Well, you have an old Mac? What version of the operating system are you running on your Mac?
What's
10.7?
Yeah, I have Mavericks.
If you have Mavericks, oh, it'll work fine. It probably said you had to upgrade your iTunes.
But
Yeah.
I was worried. I
No.
thought, my calendar,
Nothing breaks in that wouldn't have broken already.
My question is similar, but if you have an older and more recent iPad and MacBook Pro, how they interact with each other, can you download on that?
Yeah, so you can download it for your iPad. It won't make anything stop working on the other one. iOS 7 works with the cloud fine. iOS 8 works with it. Oh, one warning, when you upgrade to iOS 8, do not, you're going to have the option of saying use iCloud Drive. Say not at this time.
See, I did. I said yes, because I didn't know that when I did it. Yes.
Well, it's not ready for prime time yet, and iCloud Drive, which you didn't mention, now you do, that's actually so until you get Yosemite running on your Mac, iCloud Drive is a new version of iCloud that's wonderful, but if you get the option when it comes into don't use iCloud Drive at this time, you'll continue to use the current iCloud. Did you lose a lot of your contacts and stuff?
No.
Okay. You can. Yeah, good. And see, perfect answer. She had it backed up. So before I do anything, like, for instance, this lady here, I said she doesn't have room on her phone to back up, to download the iOS 8. Well, the reason she doesn't have room on her phone is it's a small phone, but also she got photos and everything else. And when you download it, it's a big download. You need, I think it says you need 2.8 gigabytes or something. Well, if you don't have that room on your phone, you can't upgrade to it. Unless you sync your phone with iTunes and let it download the update, and then it can push it to your phone. You can do that, and it takes up very little room at all. Now, the other reason you want to do that is anybody here have an iPhone or iPad that doesn't have a Mac? You don't have a Mac? You have a PC? Okay, do you sync your phone to your PC? So then this applies to you also. So what you do is, if you plug your phone, I mean, we've gotten to the point, we used to have to always plug it into our Macs or our PC. We don't have to anymore, but every time, if I'm going to do a big update like that, I will plug it into my Mac and back it up to iTunes. Because then it takes a complete exact image of my iPhone at that point, including my photos, including everything else, and that way if something goes wrong, and it's also on the cloud, but it's also here. And that's really important. So if you just click on your device on the left-hand side and say back up, back it up to here. And if you need to do your update, for instance, for you that has little room, you say download and install, and let iTunes do the installation of the new software for you, and it won't take up all that room. But please do a backup here, because also if you back up here, what do you get? You get to back it up on Time Machine, so it's back there. Because everybody's using Time Machine, right? Except for those on a PC. You probably have some other backup protocol. Backup, backup, backup. All right, so that's the way to do it if you don't have room and a lot of things. And that really begs the question again, hey, what size phone should I really get going forward? So size of storage, not size of screen. And they're two totally different things because, you know, it's not expandable what we can do on the phone. There's no little memory cards. And some of the phones offer that, but it's kind of that they don't. iOS 8 also, or actually the new phone, offers time-lapse photography. So we're going to use our photos even more. It can set an interval, and you can just set your thing up, and you can like watch the tide come in and just take as many photos as you want. I would make sure you stay close to your phone so nobody steals it. By the way, stealing phones is not a big deal anymore because if they take your phone, they can't activate it because they have to have your Apple ID to turn off Find My iPhone. So Apple has made this kill switch that our brilliant state legislature decided to pass. Apple's been doing that for the last year. That started in iOS 7. So what it does is it makes it so your phone cannot be activated by anyone else unless you, and if that means if you're going to sell it or do anything else, you have to go in and turn off Find My iPhone, and you need your Apple ID password for that. Go ahead.
What's the difference in storage?
There's no difference. It's the storage is the gigabytes. So the 6 and the 6 Plus are offered in 16, 64, and 128. That's the storage. So that's what I'm saying. Storage and screen size are independent of one another. Also, and Keith asked this question earlier, there's a big write-up in Macworld about iPhoto. Well, I used to do iPhoto classes, and I'm never, ever going to do an iPhoto class again. Never. Because going forward, we're going to have what's called photos. We're dropping the I. Oh, they should have called it Apple Photo, right? Maybe that. It's going to be called Photos. And Photos is really, really cool. It'll be out after the first of the year. And it'll be on your iOS device for guess how much? And your Mac for guess how much? And you'll be able to, if you're traveling and you upload photos from your camera to your iPad, you'll be able to do all the manipulation you can currently do in iPhoto, plus some of the manipulation you can do in Aperture. And I upload my camera photos to my iPad, and when I get back home and I go to my Mac, all the albums I made, all the changes to the photos I made, and everything will sync over to here. And in the case where you might have two Macs, a lot of people travel with a laptop but have an iMac at home. Well, same thing, they'll all sync, and that's the new Photos app. And that's going to be really huge. Another reason to have more storage on your iOS device, because there's a good reason to upload your photos from your camera to it if that's all you're taking when you travel. So that's the Photos app. It'll be after the first of the year. They don't know when. But it'll be cool because you'll need Yosemite on the Mac, and you'll need iOS 8 on your iOS 8 device, or on your iOS.
Photos, slideshows, whatever that you accumulated on iPhoto over the years, will that be playable or usable on this new application?
Yes. They wouldn't, there's nothing special about those. They're just photos that are manipulated certain ways. So yeah, those will all come over. If you really, and now, so anybody here use iWeb? Okay, all right, never mind. But iPhoto is going to be replaced by Photos, but iPhoto is still going to work. Everybody that has iPhoto, it'll continue to work. Apple's just not going forward with it. Because what will happen is we even think that you might get a version of Photos in a browser, so a person on a PC could fire up their Photos app on a PC browser and manipulate their photos. So it makes it all cross-platform, and unfortunately, iPhoto and Aperture can't be done on the iPad. So this will make it so everything's the same everywhere you are, very similar to how Numbers, Keynote, and Pages currently is. You do it on any device, and it's the same on all of them.
So is your organization now obsolete then?
No. If you can choose to use the new one or not, but that organization, we don't know yet, but every indication is it'll transition over. Organization isn't a big deal. It's just a different way of looking at the same photo. No, I mean, to make that happen isn't a big deal. To you to do it is a big deal, of course.
I deleted a lot of photos and when they make them locally, and can I get them back on my phone?
Yes.
How?
So so you can use iTunes is your gateway into iPhoto, and what you do in iPhoto, which would be a whole iPhoto class, which we're not going to do anymore, but the new photos will do it. But anyway, you can say sync my albums back to my phone.
Okay.
And so you create an album and say iPhone, for instance, and tell it to come. The weird thing is, though, once it's back in your phone, those are not deletable. In other words, you can view them, but they're part of that other album, and you don't want to delete them on the phone because it'll delete them from your computer. So you could have moved them all back in, but if you did it through iTunes anyway, you wouldn't have needed to move room. But this way it gives you a good chance to clean up your camera and then just bring back the ones you want. Yeah. So, Keith?
So I'm very skeptical about some of these things. You say iPhone will work.
Wait till it comes out.
But I've had problems with Apple in the past where I upgraded operating system, and then a bunch of documents that I created in an earlier version somewhere don't work anymore.
On what program? ClarisWorks?
It might have been. It might have been WordPerfect. I don't know.
WordPerfect wasn't an Apple program.
Okay. But the point is when they went...
No, but let's do that quicken. I mean, it's not an Apple program, so it's not Apple's fault that it broke.
I understand that. But also you're saying because this is an Apple program, they're not going to...
I didn't say anything for sure. I said probably.
Okay.
Because if I say something for sure, it means I have firsthand knowledge. Every indication is, and I can't imagine the uproar if it didn't. Okay?
The things with WordPerfect and with Quicken and these other things that don't work anymore on newer versions of...
You've not told me anything about Apple products there.
Okay, you're right.
That's the thing.
Okay.
So, again, like I told people about iOS 8, when you upgrade, be forewarned. And like when we made the big jump from 10.6.8 to 10.7, there were apps that broke. There should be no apps that break between 10.9 Mavericks and 10.10 Yosemite because there's no underlying difference in the structure of it. So, shouldn't. And it really, I don't think it should because there's nothing in there that makes it different. What happened when those things broke is it got rid of that old PowerPC stuff that was G3, G5, G4 stuff, which was only about 12 years old. You know, PC people don't have this trouble because their PCs don't last that long.
So albums.
Let's not go into photos. More than likely it will. We don't know anything yet. I assure you I'll have a class as soon as it comes out. I'm sorry, but I can't be any more definitive because I don't have the... I mean, I've seen a demo of it, and that's it. But, you know, come on. It's Apple. I mean, think about it for a minute. We can get all worried and all flustered, and nobody's going to force you to upgrade. And iPhoto will still work. It's like, hey, I still use the old version of Pages most of the time because I haven't spent the time learning the new version of Pages. Does it still work? Yeah. Do they still sell it? No. Do they still support it? No, but it works. iWeb's been abandoned forever, and I still use iWeb all the time.
Non-photo question.
Okay.
One of the upgrades that came up that I haven't heard brought up yet is set up family sharing.
I've got that for the afternoon. So let's go ahead and take a break, and I'm going to make sure I cover that right away. And, let me stop the recording. All right. So in iOS 8, there's some new features. We all know about Siri. Some of us use it. Siri's gotten better. For some of us, Siri's been a bit problematic lately, but Siri's wonderful. So, but the nice thing is now, if I'm plugged into power, like in my car with my little adapter or right here, plugged into power, I can say, hey Siri, what's the temperature in Paris, France?
It's currently 66 degrees Fahrenheit in Paris, France.
Hey Siri, what's the meaning of life?
It's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach him.
Hey Siri, send Altrivet a text message.
Okay, what do you want to say to Altrivet?
Just testing Siri, comma, and I hope you like the iPhone case.
Your message to Altrivet says, just testing Siri, and I hope you like the iPhone case. Ready to send it?
Yes, send it.
Okay, I'll send it.
Did you notice while it was working that Siri used to, I would record what I said up to 30 seconds, send it out over the internet, and then bring it back to me. But did you notice it dictated as I spoke now? Unlike on the Mac when it does that, it's still using the internet. But don't get wrapped up in having to look at it because you'll just inevitably, just keep saying what you're going to say. And you know what? In this day and age, yes, it's actually become comedy, some of the error corrections, or excuse me, the spelling typo corrections that Siri will do inadvertently for you. But she will never misspell a word because it consults the dictionary before it comes back to you. And again, let's talk about this. It records what I'm saying. It sends it out over the internet to Maiden, North Carolina. Apple's big supercomputer, they're building a new one in Reno. And it comes back to, consults a dictionary and comes back to you. Now I say it consults a dictionary because if I mumble a word, it wants to say, oh, does it, oh, there we go. Hey Siri, read my most recent text message.
Your message to Altrivet says, just testing Siri, and I hope you like the iPhone case. Ready to send it?
Cancel.
There's nothing to cancel.
Hey Siri, read me my most recent text message.
Your message to Altrivet says, just testing Siri, and I hope you like the iPhone case.
So, read my most recent text message.
You have no messages.
Yeah, because I already looked at it. But anyway, I would read it and reply to it. So, in fact, shoot me just another one real quick if you don't mind. With it, I want it with the screen off.
Steak sandwiches.
Philly cheesesteak? Okay, so if you think about that, now what it does is it's not just transcribing what you're doing. It can look up things for you. It said, what's the temperature in Paris, France? It told me the meaning of life, which is always very useful if you're in doubt. And it changes that. Sometimes it'll say chocolate. Sometimes it'll say 47. But Siri, you have to embrace her. She's gotten better. If you were frustrated with it in the beginning, just start using it. It's so, so, so wonderful. It really is. So it's built into every iOS since iOS 7 and newer, and it works on every phone, iPhone 4S and newer, and it works on every iPad mini and every iPad 3, 4, or Air. Okay? Hey Siri, read me my most recent text message.
There are no messages.
It's for some reason it's messing up on that. Sorry, but it normally does. So, but Siri, if it's plugged into power, otherwise I just press and hold the home button. And we're off the screen. So.
You open it by saying, hey Siri.
If it's plugged into power.
Yeah.
Hey Siri, what can I say?
You can ask me to get directions, make phone calls, and send you texts and emails. I can show you lots more when you can look at your iPhone.
So she said when I can look at my iPhone. because I have a headphone plugged in to the jack using the speaker, first of all, you'll notice it read back to me what I said. So if I use my Apple headphones, or I use Bluetooth in my car, or in the new cars that have CarPlay, it will read back what I typed, okay, if it's a headset, so I can leave it in my pocket. And if you have an iWatch, it'll do the same thing. Tease, okay, sorry. But the idea is that if I have my phone in my hand and I don't have a Bluetooth headset on or this plugged into it, I'm looking at it, so it doesn't read back to me what I typed. I read it. But she said, I'll tell you more if I'm not on there. Oh, there's Al's shipment of his phone. Waiting for us. All right, so I always say, what can I say? But what you do with Siri is, think of it as your administrative assistant. You wouldn't say, Sacramento International Airport. You would say, oh, please get me a map and give me directions to Sacramento International Airport. Or send Al an email. Or, hey Siri, schedule dentist today at 3 p.m.
You have 4 events that overlap with this. Shall I schedule your event pop dentist for this afternoon anyway?
No, cancel. No.
All right, Ken, I'll leave it off your calendar.
Sometimes she has a tendency. She'll say, you're too busy anyway. I had 4 appointments. I mean, come on, if that wasn't busy enough. But that's a great way for me. First of all, I text while I'm driving. I send emails while I'm driving. I answer my phone calls. And my hand never touches my phone. I am truly driving and doing it legally hands-free. Okay? Also with my directions. Hey Siri, give me directions to Sacramento International Airport.
Getting directions to Sacramento International Airport.
Hands never left my wrists.
Starting route to Sacramento.
The sound comes through here now just because of a flaw in this little setup.
Way.
Hey Siri, find In-N-Out Burger on my route.
I found one place matching In-N-Out Burger. It is a little ways from you. There's an In-N-Out Burger on Alpinarden Expressway. It's a little more than 2 miles west. Do you want that one?
No, cancel.
Okay.
End navigation. Oh. Hey Siri, end navigation.
Okay, I've stopped navigating.
So I use a photography app that Al turned me on to called TPE. So, hey Siri, launch TPE. So I have 994 apps on my phone. Did I have to go find this one? Hey Siri, launch Apple Maps. Tip of the day here, you guys. Apple Maps kicks butt, but Waze is way better. W-A-Z-E. I've been traveling a lot the last month. It's free. It's owned by Google. Does anyone remember Carmageddon? What was Carmageddon? The 405 freeway in Southern California that everybody freaked out about because, like, their traffic's not bad enough already to decide to close one of the major freeways. That's where Waze gained popularity. I'll give you an example. 2 weekends ago, maybe 3 weekends ago, Highway 50, not the old project, but they were doing a real quick one over the weekend. Did anybody get caught in that? I didn't. No, I'm not smart. I'm resourceful. My phone makes me smart. So I was going to see a client down in Greenhaven. And I knew it was going to be an issue. So rather than use Apple Maps, which Apple Maps are becoming more and more integrated all the time. And in fact, if I make that dentist appointment for 3 p.m. and the dentist is in my address book, it will give me a reminder and say, you have to leave now because traffic's bad to get there by 3 o'clock. So that's coming more and more with our iOS device. But this example was I needed to get around traffic on Highway 50. I live out in Stone Creek out in Rancho Cordova, and I needed to get to Greenhaven. And I go, oh boy, that's not going to be good. And I'm going, I should have left a half hour ago. Oh well. So I fired up Waze. It had me get off on 65th and go along the frontage road on the south side of the freeway, kind of by Coloma, where the MacNexus classes used to be. Go along, and then it says, it's taking me on the freeway. It got me on like Stockton Boulevard on the freeway, and then dumped me down off on 26th and went up the frontage road, and I'm passing all this gridlocked cars. Boom. Took me right to where I needed to be, and I made it in time. Another example, I was coming back from, I went to the Sharks preseason game Wednesday night and left the arena. And if you know Sonol grade coming over 680 there, it was stopped right after the truck scales, or right at the truck scales coming down. Stopped. As soon as I saw traffic, I fired up Waze and I said, take me home. And it got me on this frontage road, and I saved an easy 20 minutes, bypassing all this traffic and got me right back on. Waze is amazing. Now, Waze is an app. You can have it do it yourself, but what's really cool is I just pulled up, here's Sacramento International Airport on my iPhone. I said, find Sacramento International Airport. So when I tap the little arrow in the upper left for directions, now it gives me a choice of directions. Now, when I told Siri, give me directions to Sacramento International Airport, it took the preferred shortest route, or excuse me, quickest route, not shortest, but quickest, okay, because that assumes. So it automatically would have taken me that way, right? Now, we have a new thing up here. Well, first of all, we always have walking directions. I'm not going to walk to the Sacramento International Airport, sorry. I should walk more, but not that much. Apps. Now, first of all, there are transit apps out there. RT. Different places have apps for the transit ones. Apple has opened it up so app developers now have access to certain Apple programs, and if I tap the apps logo, or the apps icon, I can decide to do it in Glimpse, which I'll talk about in a second. I can use MapQuest, I can use Uber, I can go on here, I even have Navigon on here. But if I choose Waze, it will take that information for Sacramento International Airport and just put it into Waze. And then Waze fires up. And Waze will give me the route. And
Drive safely.
You know what? Hang on here. Why did it?
The Waze app has to be preloaded on your iPhone?
Yeah, you have to get the Waze app. It's free. Waze was bought by Google. Waze is very good. And what this does is, I don't know why it's horizontal.
How can I help?
Oops. So let me. So Waze is really cool though. So I'm going along. It told me if I'd have had Waze on when that traffic comes, it says there's traffic stopped ahead. So I was coming back on 580 by Livermore, and I'm going along, and it says there's stopped traffic ahead. Watch out, or it'll say watch out. There's a car pulled over on the side of the road. And those are reported by other people that have Waze. I can do it hands-free by swiping my hand up by the speaker and report that there's a stopped car. There's something in the road. So it's this what's called crowdsourcing, and it also senses how fast I'm going. So when I slowed down to a stop, it said, I see you've stopped. Are you in heavy, moderate, or light traffic? And at that point, I was in heavy traffic, so I tapped heavy. I probably could have done it without my voice. But the beauty is I'm contributing to this information everyone's using.
When you're using this, though, you pull over. You're not doing this while you're driving, are you?
Have I touched my phone?
No.
So why would I pull over? Because Waze would then say there's a stopped car on the side of the road, right? Why would I pull over?
I don't know. I'm trying to relate this to my Garmin. My Garmin's a little bit different than this. The Garmin will tell me where to go or whatever, you know.
So
this is like the map.
Yeah, but you know what? Does your Garmin have live traffic?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not as accurate as this. This uses all the live traffic that all the traffic reports get. So just how this works around, do you remember the old days when KCRA used to have a chopper up in the air and they would tell you, yes, there's traffic on Highway 80 at so-and-so, avoid it and go Highway 50, right? They used to have all these airplanes and choppers. Now they've put in traffic cameras and all these sensors in the road, and Caltrans and CHP give that information to everyone because it's really good for everyone to have that information. And the traffic alerts, what you get with that, what you get on the Apple Maps, what you get on these others, are those same things. I can go to the CHP website. There's a CHP app that'll show you certain accidents and things like that. That's information that comes in and it's disseminated. But the advantage to Waze is it also has the people using Waze are contributing to the information, like the car stopped on the side of the road. Those things don't show up on that. It notified me, hey, you're stopped. Are you in heavy traffic? And then it let everybody else know. Okay? So I think Waze is fantastic, and it saved me a lot of time recently, but I can still use Apple Maps. And what was really funny is, because I listen to podcasts a lot, it's been interrupting my podcast a little, so I'll turn it off, and I have Apple Maps talk through the phone, but my podcast goes through my Bluetooth in the car, so I can have them both. But what's happened is, even though I'm not using Waze for navigation, if Waze is still on, it says, there's a car pulled over on the shoulder ahead. I'm going, it's still talking to me. And so, it's great. Question?
Yeah, does Google still have Google Maps?
Uh-huh. And it's good too, but Waze is really just kind of it. So, let me pass my hand over it. Oh, see, it uses the microphone. So I can report things, but I tap to cancel. That's why it came up on the screen wrong. And this is distorted. We'll get out of Waze. But anyway, Waze is very, very good. And Apple Maps is fantastic. And Apple Maps is going to start to have more of this kind of information because Apple doesn't want you to have to use Google. And you won't have to. And now, admittedly, Google is anonymously using that information, but it's fine. I've not signed into a Waze account anywhere. They don't know who I am.
Can I load Waze on my Mac and file it?
No. No. But it's an iOS device only, or iOS. But here's what we can do in Apple Maps. So I'm on my computer, and I go to Maps, Apple Maps. This is really cool. So let's say, come on, Maps, fire up. I'm going to go to Yosemite, let's say. Up to 5 fingers, not 5-finger discount, 5 fingers on the reader. Now, I use my index finger and my thumb on both my hands, is what I have set. Because in my car, I can just touch it, and it does it. I'm in different angles. But what I can also do is, if I go into my finger, it'd be nice if you could see it. God, all this stuff driving me wonky. Somebody emailed me about getting the discount iTunes cards already. Very good. I'll respond to that in 3 weeks. As I tell everyone, if you send me an email or send me a text or a phone call, if I don't respond in 24 hours, assume I'm dead or in jail. And I've never been in jail, but I would be calling you for bail money anyway. Or I missed it because I get 200 emails a day. It went off the bottom, so don't sweat that. Okay, I mean, it's not nagging me. It's a reminder. Go ahead and send it again. No, Terry, you don't have to send it again. So I got it. But anyway, I want to show you. What are you doing? I got flustered by this. Oh, the fingerprint reader. So if I go into settings and I hit Touch ID, and it requires the passcode I put on my phone. Pay no attention. Now, I can name these fingerprints. In fact, this is, so I'm going to tap on this with my number 2 finger, my index finger. Notice every time I tap on it, it shows me which finger it was. So now I'm going to use my thumb. Oops. Cancel. It's hard on this little stand. See, it says that's 1. Well, I'm going to name that. I'm going to name it right thumb. Okay? Back. So now that one's called right thumb. But I can teach my fingerprint reader to get better by, I don't press the button, but every time I tap the screen, and now what I'm going to do is actually roll my thumb from the center to the side. Every time I tap it, see how it, now I'm all the way on the side. See, it doesn't catch it, but now I'm back in the middle. And if I'm rolling it to the side, it's getting more of my fingerprint all the way over, so it'll be more accurate. In iOS 8, and more particularly on the new 6s, the fingerprint reader is great. Now, you want to maybe leave one extra fingerprint for a spouse or someone else in the family, or a traveling companion. And you can do that temporarily. What you would do is teach it the person's fingerprint, so if something happens to you and they need to get in and get your information, they can use you figure one of their fingers, have it learn it, and you've got that there. So 5 fingers is enough. You talked about the cut. Well, if worse comes to worse and your fingerprint doesn't work, the passcode for your phone will always work. Okay?
Can you delete a fingerprint?
You bet you can. So I just tap on that right thumb one, and I could delete it right there. So that's where if the traveling companion, if you want to deny privileges to that person after that, you can do it. It has to be a live thumb. It senses capacitive discharge. So we don't have a lot of people walking around like this, using their Apple devices. They don't cut off hands to use somebody else's. It senses it's live. Yeah. There was a question back here, Carol?
No, I think the question is to me.
Yeah. That was what Criminal Minds had a limb one the other day. All right. So, but what's going to happen is you're going to be able to use that more and more. Now, it's amazing when you look at the big picture on how Apple is saying, let's go ahead and let's do Touch ID. Let's make sure we have good privacy. Let's make sure we have good security, because we have something coming out next year, the iWatch. Now, since day one, the very first iPhone, when this came out, Steve Jobs, and if you ever get a chance, go back and see the January 9th, my birthday, January 9th, 2007 keynote when Steve Jobs introduced this. You have to understand that Pete Losey and I, we had 2 cars going, 6 people. For the old Macworlds, we used to drive down there and then go to Mel's Cafe. We were watching the blogs on our old phones. I had a Sony Ericsson phone that was terrible. You couldn't see the internet. You were looking at these little blogs trying to say, hey, they're introducing this, hey, they're doing that. And at 9:41, because that's what all the iPhone ads always show, 9:41, that's when they figured the phone would be introduced on the stage, because the keynote started at 9 and it went till 11. But anyway, Steve Jobs got up there and he said, and today, because all rumors about an iPhone, we're thinking, cool, I want a new phone, that's great, I know Apple's going to make the killer phone. So Steve Jobs got up there and said, and today we're introducing 3 things. We're introducing the best iPod ever. Remember how popular the iPod was back then. Not iPad, but iPod. We're introducing a new iPod. We're introducing a new internet communicator, is what he said. And we're introducing a new phone. And everybody, when they said phone, they cheer. And then he says, we're introducing an iPod, an internet communicator, and an iPhone. And then you could kind of tell, oh, it's all three in one. The iPhone, the way I've always described it is it's a computer that happens to make phone calls. To call this a phone, even a smartphone, it's so much more, and especially what we can do today. From day one, we've had accelerometers in it. We've had proximity sensors. We've had all this other stuff. It's more capable than most of our regular computers as far as what it can do. To call this a watch would do it the same disservice as calling this just a phone. There is so much that's going to happen with this watch. Will I need one? No. But just for you guys, I will have one the day it becomes available. So thank you for indulging me, but it is more than just a watch. And what you have to understand is, yes, it's been rumored for a long time, and I may accidentally call it iWatch because that's what we all thought it was. Excuse me if I do, but it's Apple Watch. It's been rumored for a long time, and of course Samsung copies everything Apple does. So they tried to copy this in advance, and Samsung is now on the 6th version of their watch. And did they get it right yet? No. And can they do what this is doing? Well, Samsung copied Apple's fingerprint reader. Apple bought this company called Authentech. And less than a year from them buying Authentech is when they integrated the fingerprint reader into the iPhone 5S. Has anybody had problems with their iPhone 5S and a fingerprint reader? It just plain works. And to implement it that quickly was amazing to me. I would have expected it to be 18 months at least. Anyway, Samsung put out a fingerprint reader, and when it works, it can be hacked. And people's PayPal accounts were screwed up. So anyway, other people have done watches. There's some neat watches out there, but this isn't a watch. This is an internet communicator, but more importantly, it's a health device. Because, and probably the best thing I can do is go into my screenshots here. I watched the whole keynote twice. Here we go. Let's get to the one spot here. Come on, where's one more thing? So, you know that Steve Jobs always did one more thing. And Tim Cook got on stage. Sorry, I'll come back to these really quickly. It's amazing. I'm sorry, I don't have the right spot. And you have to watch the video. Yeah, you are. All right. So it was, the one more thing is what Steve Jobs always did. But not always, did it very few times. And this, the iPhone, the iPad, the original Mac, and the iMac were very seminal days in the evolution of Apple. And I can't say strongly enough how I think this is another seminal day in Apple for two reasons, the Apple Watch and Apple Pay. The watch, again, will do many, many things. And what's made the iPhone and the iPad so good is all these other apps. And the Apple Watch, the Apple Watch will support apps also. But when he did this, we all expected iWatch, came out with that. Now, here's a little interesting, and this is a little behind the scenes tidbit. Remember I said the iPhone always said 941 because they always thought it. This I don't think was introduced at 1009, but you know what? Johnny Ive tweeted out before this, he said, watch out Switzerland. Of Of course, we all know how Switzerland is about watches, and you're thinking, boy, you know, a Rolex and an Omega and a Sima or any of these are not like anything compared, you know, it's Apple. But anyway, if you look at the hands, it's at 10:09. Apple chose 10:09, or in this case 10:09:30, because all the watch manufacturers, when you see ads for watches, are at 10:10. Because the logo, for instance, the crown for the Rolex, okay, the name of it is always best exposed in ads if the hands are out at 10:10. There's some symmetry to that. So they're called horologists, I think I have that right, which are hourologists, you know, that's watch people. And you can tell they've really, this isn't just a second thought for Apple. And you can communicate to other people with it. There's like the early version of the Sport. It's pretty amazing. And the bands they've done are all interchangeable. And actually, he says, really, this is kind of the interface of what the touch wheel and the mouse and all that combined into this little wheel on the side, because it would be hard to spread everything in and out with your fingers on this little device. So you use this little dial right here and you zoom in and it zoom out. Got to watch the video, but let me go through this quickly. Oh, here's the 10:09:30, okay? And then, of course, in digital mode, it's 10:09. So that was kind of a smack in their face. But the faces are all interactive, and what's really neat is the face that you choose, they had one with Mickey Mouse going like this, of course, because Mrs. Jobs is the largest shareholder of Disney, so I think it was pretty easy to get the licensing rights to put Mickey Mouse on the face of it. But he's moving around. And his arms, you know, can be the time if you want it to. But more than a watch, if you look here, there are infrared and other sensors on the bottom, and this will be your on-road, and look at some of this gorgeous 18-karat gold. Yeah, you know, that's going to be thousands of dollars. But the screen, unlike our iPhone, the things move on the screen. So this is all done inside a chip, inside the phone, where the entire chip is hermetically sealed. So you have the more power than the original iPhone had inside this chip that's here. It looks like you'll get a day's worth of use out of the battery. Nothing guaranteed on that yet, or nothing said. These are the sensors on the bottom. And this is your little magnetic charger that just fits right on the bottom of the phone. You can't put it on wrong. You just put it right there and it charges the watch. It's magnetic. Very similar to the little magnetic MagSafe you have on your laptops. But that's a MagSafe connector, so it can go anywhere. I'm sure there'll be an aftermarket. Also, so there's going to be an aftermarket on bands and everything else, because all the bands are in. Oh, here's the. So this one would, his feet were going like this in the video. So you really got to see that. But now if you look here, there's this little button. And if you depress the button, the band slides out and you can put a different color band on there. You have all this interchangeability. This is the Sport version, and these just slide in and out. So there's 3 versions of the watch. This is gorgeous. This supposedly is a huge thing the watchmakers were really impressed with. The way that this fits on the wrist, the way that this closes, but more particularly, you know, you have to put links in and out of a bracelet on the watch, and the bracelet, of course, is as big a deal as a watch for most people. You can, without any tools, put in more or remove links with no tools. Except your fingers. 2 sizes. The face size is 38 millimeter and 42 millimeter. There's not a women's watch or a men's watch. It's smaller and bigger. And the big isn't that big from what I understand. I mean, it's pretty good, but that's the difference. And then, of course, the corresponding band. This is just, so iWatch Sport. This is going to be, everybody, the Fitbits and all those little health trackers and stuff. And by the way, Apple has hired the guy that did the Fitbit, or the Nike one, the Nike Fuel Band. Nike is no longer in that business. They've surrendered it to Apple, pretty much. And they're going to work together on those kinds of things, which is smart because of the watch. So the Sport version is the one that I think will be the least expensive. It won't have a sapphire crystal. It'll have what's called an ion-impregnated face on it. and it's a plastic bezel, the top, and the band will be kind of a rubberized type. So its idea is it's very lightweight. You know, you don't want to, if you're jogging, you don't want to carry around a big heavy watch. The watch can work on its own autonomously, but for a lot of the stuff, it needs to be with a phone. So for instance, I get a text message, I just glance up. Oh, first of all, it'll vibrate on my wrist, and it's undiscernible to anyone else in the room. It'll just give me a little buzz. It doesn't make any noise like when your phone vibrates. And I can look down and see what it is. I can decide to respond. I can use Siri to respond. Look like the Secret Service. Yes. Yes, they've jumped over the fence, and they're going to get in the White House, and the guy only has a knife, but he had a bunch of guns in his car, but don't worry about it, because we're the Secret Service. So maybe they should use the iWatch, and it would send out laser beams and shoot the guy or something. Anyway, the sport version will be an aluminum case with a ion glass plastic crystal and straps, and these are some of them. Of course, infinite choices. You have a silver and slate gray, very similar to the iPhone one, so that's just them. The iWatch, the Apple Watch Edition. They won't be cheap because they come in 18 karat gold, and they come in 18 karat rose gold. And you can get them with the sport band if you want. And you can change the bands. And this is what's called the Milanese weave. It's a wonderful way to do a watch band. And the watchmakers that have seen it just went crazy with it. So anyway, then there are all these apps. You don't have to tap on an app. What you do is you turn the crown, like all watches have crowns, right? You turn the crown and it zooms in, and you can go to a particular app. But there's tons of apps. Let's just go through this. Obviously, there's different colors you can do to correspond to it. Oh, it shows you where you are on Earth in case you got lost. Yeah, right. Where you are in the solar system. And what the planets mean, blah, blah. So you can play, you can do your music from there. Tim Cook mentioned he can control his Apple TV from it. But again, we haven't even talked about Apple Home, and that's what's coming. You're going to have a fully automated home that you'll be able to control, you know, the lights and the so what will happen is as you go forward, because you'll have your watch, and you'll say, "Hey," and that device that does your phone, "Hey, so and so, my girlfriend. Hey, I'm going to sleep now." And what it'll do is dim your lights, turn your air conditioning setting to what you've programmed it, etc. And it'll do all that. That's the true automated home. And then you take your phone and you put it on, or I'm sorry, you take your Apple Watch and put it on a charger.
So Siri's on Apple Watch?
Yes. Because it slaves to the phone, which slaves. So the idea is first of all, our iPhones are always connected. Soon to be Apple phones, I'm sure. iPhones are always connected. The watch is connected by low power Bluetooth to the phone. And by doing that, it maximizes, just like our phones can't do the dictation, but the big supercomputer made in North Carolina is. So realistically, the watch is connected to the phone, which is connected to the world and the internet. And so it goes back and forth like this. Because if we had Wi-Fi on this watch, the battery would be really heavy, and it wouldn't wrap around and all that, and it'd probably get so warm that it'd burn your wrist. So, of course. Yeah, there is a microphone, and I don't know. On the speaker, there's a vibration feedback. But on your watch, you don't necessarily need a speaker as much, but we'll see. I don't know that part. It might, if anybody knows, pipe up on that, because I didn't check that anything.
Is it waterproof? Like swim or shower? Good
question. Is it waterproof? It's water resistant. You can shower with it, but they say don't go underwater with it. But I'm sure that it'll be okay, because again, it's pretty much hermetically sealed inside there. So, and the sport version may be different than the edition, because more people would get wet the sport version than they're going to get the other edition done. So, it'll be out sometime after the first of the year. Photos, maps, do friend requests. But again, I want to get to the part here about health. So, it's not just a fashion thing, and they're going to make it very fashionable, but it can do health tracking. It has a sensor in it. For instance, if I go take a walk and I leave my iPhone at home, it can log certain things I do, but it won't do GPS because that's not built into it. But if I have my phone with me, it'll do it. But it will log certain things you do, and when it connects back to the phone, it will report back to it. But more importantly than this, we have things coming up called HealthKit. And HealthKit is an iOS8. And what this is, the whole big revolution, if you think about it, you know, we all go in for our blood pressure checks. A lot of us have home blood pressure monitors. And the blood pressure monitors are great because you're in a relaxed environment at home and you can log your blood pressure and see what your blood pressure does at certain times. I'm just using this as an example. When you go to the doctor, there's called the white coat syndrome. A lot of people get more tense when they're in a doctor's office no matter what, no matter how nice your doctor is and how much you like him. Your blood pressure spikes when you're in the doctor's office because, oh my God, I don't want them to think my blood pressure's up and I got to get more medicine and then they're going to put me in the hospital. Hey, you don't need that stress. So if you can constantly monitor your blood pressure in a relaxed environment, like many times, like for the people like sleep studies and things like that, they give you stuff and they let you keep it with time and it logs it. Your health devices will log it over time, and you'll have the option. Let's say you have a problem with glucose and sugars or blood pressures and things. With your health kit, you can keep all that information completely private if you would like, or you can say, let my doctor or my caregiver have all that information, or you can say, only if my blood pressure goes above 160 over 100, send them an alert. Which would then be, they'd call 911 for you, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is you still have complete control over what you give them, but how valuable is that? The people that sit in the hospital for a while, they get a good, if you're in a hospital bed for 3 weeks, they kind of get an idea of what your patterns are and things like that. But you have it with you. But again, it's still yours and your information. You don't have to give it away. But for the most part, if you're trying to monitor stuff, it makes it monitor. Those of you that monitor your sugars, how many times you got to stick yourself to it. There are products now where you can actually use the small amount of moisture on the skin, and it will tell you what your blood sugars are. It can tell you enzymes. The enzyme that's put out when you have or anticipating or soon to have a heart attack, there's some enzymes that come out from that. It'll show that kind of stuff. Those are the kinds of things that the Apple Watch will do as a health device. It can sense, it'll even prompt you if you want it to and say, hey, you said you wanted to do 30 minutes of exercise today. You haven't. Or you've been in front of your computer for an hour and a half. Maybe you can get up. And you can set all those nags yourself with this device. And the Apple Watch, again, it's a seminal moment. We know hardly anything about it yet. They introduced it. Apple doesn't usually pre-announce things unless it's something new. They didn't pre-announce the iPhone 6 because it would cannibalize the iPhone 5 sales. They pre-announced the iPhone originally. It was introduced January 9th, 2007, and it was available June 29th, 2007. The iPad was announced 4 months before it came out. The Apple Watch is announced probably 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 before it comes out. And remember, it's got its own operating system. So now we have macOS, we have iOS for our iOS device, and we have watchOS. But they're all based on the same OS 10, which goes back to Next Computer, which is a modern new operating system. It's very secure. Now, the last part I'll get into, just have time for it, is Apple Pay, which I want to see. So, here's what iOS can be supported on. These are the devices iOS 8 will work on. iPad 2. So anybody who's ever shopped at Home Depot was probably affected by the most recent breach. There was a Target breach. There was another one, JP Morgan Chase just had a breach. Okay, I'm 3 for 3. I haven't been affected, but I could be affected. And credit monitoring's crap. They're going to offer you credit monitoring, but it doesn't do crap. If you listen to ClarkHoward.com, the only way you're truly protected is by doing what's called a credit freeze. And if you don't want to have your identity stolen, a credit freeze is the only way to do it. If your identity hasn't been stolen in California, there's 3 credit agencies: TransUnion, Experian, and help me. Equifax. Thank you. And they're very customer service oriented, all of those. If you have so you have to do a credit freeze with those 3 bureaus. It costs you $10 to do your credit freeze. And what happens is that means that no one can open credit if they happen to go to Macy's and say, hey, I'm this person, open me credit, without unfreezing your credit. Now, what that means is that if you're going to get a car or you want to get a new credit card, you unfreeze the credit temporarily or thaw it with whatever agency they check with. With Credit Karma, you'll still be able to get your credit results and all that, but just no one can open new lines of credit. It's the only sure way to make sure it doesn't happen. LifeLock is really pretty much a scam. It's just a way to get money. And credit monitoring doesn't do much because it's after the fact. But check with him, he has a credit freeze thing there. But you're not going to have to worry about that as much going forward with Apple Pay. And what Apple Pay will do is, and by the way, you can now store your credit cards in your iOS device, and in fact, you don't even have to enter them. You can take a picture of your card and it'll fill in the number for you. But Apple Pay is going to allow you to go up to a place that has an Apple Pay reader already in CVS, Macy's, Nordstrom, quite a few of the others. And the new phones have what has an NFC chip in it. And this will be available for use later this month. And you'll be able to go to the device there and touch it and pay your bill, like your grocery bill or whatever, with your credit card that's stored in your iPhone. And you can have multiple credit cards. I say, okay, use my Chase card or use my American Express or use this when I go to pay. Now, the way that this is very secure is, once your credit card is entered into your device one time, the number no longer exists there. That credit card number has been verified. Okay, it's a valid Chase account. Boom. It gives the iPhone saying, okay, that's a good, valid credit card. Now, when I go to Macy's and I use Apple Pay, it generates a brand new unique number that's a one-time use number. So I don't care if there's a hacker there that's sniffing their Wi-Fi and doing like the Target thing or the Home Depot thing. All they're going to get is that one-time use generated number, and it will only be good for that one transaction I just did. And then it disappears. So it's super secure because it's like having a brand new credit card every time you use it and then ripping up that credit card afterwards and that number never exists. Everybody got how that kind of works, one-time use numbers? You can do that with some of your credit card companies now. But it's wonderful because it doesn't compromise your auto pays or anything else. And when you go look at your phone, it'll show a picture of a credit card, but it won't show a number on it. And your phone does not store the number. So therefore, once it's activated, it's done. The banks love this. One of the ladies from Chase, pretty high up, was she was giving a presentation. The same morning, Tim Cook was announcing this. And these banks, Chase supposedly had 1,000 people working on this to make it work. It sounds like a lot, but anyway, this is a big deal to them because fraud costs them a lot of money. This makes these transactions fraud-free, so it's going to save the banks a lot of money. Apple's very altruistic about it because in the past people have tried this, but they want to make money on that transaction. Apple's making a minimal amount of money on the transaction. It's essentially a break-even proposition for Apple, but it keeps you in the ecosystem, and you as the customer is going to be helped by this, so therefore it sells more Apple products. And she was doing her presentation, and what happened was she knew she couldn't divulge it and they have code. All the banks had code names for this stuff. So she's doing her presentation talking about something else, and at the time when they know that Tim Cook had said about Apple Pay, had announced it, one of her associates in the conference room took out of a lunch bag an apple and set it on the desk in front of her, and then she was okay to go talk about it. Because Apple's very secretive. I mean, if you double-cross Apple, they'll shut you out of the whole thing. The banks love it. Many of the banks are on board, USAA, Citi, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. But it's very, very secure. Now, the cool thing is, remember, so what happens is I go up to the pay station, I just put my phone nearby it, and I touch my fingerprint reader. And boom, done. That's it. They have a one-time use of your credit card. They don't know who you are because all they knew is that that was authorized for that transaction. They don't. It's just some number that got authorized. So they don't know who you are. They can't track you. They can't do any of that. But they just got paid. Your question? One sec.
Yeah, I'd like to set my American Express card as the primary one, but not all merchants currently take American Express. Will you be able to select?
Yes, let's see. Yes, as you go to do the pay, you do it beforehand and say, which card do you want to use? They'll show up on your screen. It's an Apple app called Passbook, and Passbook will have the one, and you choose it. So that's a perfect scenario. Alfredo, you had a question? Here's the picture of it. Yes, you have to have a 5S or newer. I'm sorry, you have to have a 6 because it has the NFC chip in it. NFC is this special secure chip called Near Field Communication, which is a very secure thing that says I've hovered over it. But the Apple Watch will have an NFC chip in it. So now the plot thickens. My phone's in my back pocket because I want to bend it, right? Or it's on my hip case here. I mean, it's not stylish, but one of the female podcasters I listen, she says, you know, fanny packs may come back in style because of the iPhone 6 Plus. So anyway, I'm not there yet, but I've got the old man hip case. But I take my watch, and it has an NFC chip in it, and I just do it by the Apple Pay, and boom, it's done.
I thought the 5S was supposed to be able to use it.
Hang on. So, but I said you have to do a fingerprint to activate the transaction. My iPhone, Apple Watch doesn't have a fingerprint reader. So here's what happens. When I put my Apple Watch on in the morning, it says, okay, you're a live person. Go to your phone and authorize with your Touch ID. I've got a live thumb, so that way it's not on my brother's arm. It's my thumb, my watch. Boom, okay. Now this is authorized to use Apple Pay. If I take it off, I've lost that live skin contact, and if I put the watch back on, I have to reauthorize it with fingerprint ID. That's why the 5S will work with the iWatch. But the 5S will not work for Apple Pay because it does not have an NFC chip in it. It's my understanding. Let's see if they... So there it is, takes a picture of it. You had a question over here?
If you go to a restaurant, you give them your card, and then you go to the back, and then you come back with your card and your slip. What do? You walk back there with your...
No, okay, so your question is when you go to the restaurant. So first of all, you're 100 times more likely to have your credit card number stolen at a restaurant than you are online. And by the way, this will be able to do Apple Pay online also, so it's going to help that. What will happen is all McDonald's currently can use this. They have a little... See, what's happening is, okay, and Clark Howard again, the U.S. is the last place that doesn't use what's called chip and pin. Chip and pin is the way it should go. Now, why did Target get breached? Why did Home Depot get breached? And why did J.P. Morgan... Well, that's a little different thing. But anyway, those two. Because all the other countries use chip and pin. So therefore, everything's like a one-number transaction, very much how this is. So all these hackers are now... We're the Petri dish. The Petri dish has gotten smaller, and they're able to attack everything in the Petri dish because only the U.S. doesn't have chip and pin. So therefore, they attack all the people in the U.S. using those things. So this will be the way. We're going to get away from that anyway because they're going to have to use chip and pin within the next 2 years. Everywhere you go will use chip and pin. Chip and pin means you have a smart chip inside your credit card, and you'll have a pin just like your other does. And then the cool thing is see that smart chip generates a new number each time. so that doesn't really have your number on it. But here's how unfortunate it is. You can take a credit card, hold a piece of paper to it, and rub over it, and the embossed numbers are on this, right? I mean, that goes back to the days when in high school when I worked in a service station, we had the chick reader, and then we had the carbon copy because we didn't have carbonless back then. And, I mean, just think about how widespread credit card numbers were at that time. This is really the answer. People are embracing it. Yes, other people have done it, but as Apple always does, they take existing technology, make it work, and then make it really just the right way. And Apple Pay is huge.
So I have two questions. One is this Apple Pay going to supersede the chip and PIN? So the bank don't actually have to put that into their credit card?
No, because the small restaurant around the corner that can't afford the newer type of terminal, they're still going to have to do, and that's a whole nother scam, is the lease that these retailers have to pay for these devices. But you'll still have to have a physical card. For instance, when Ken tries to charge you exorbitantly for the amount he charges to do tech support for you, and he uses this little square device, this will have a chip reader in it. And it'll support chip and PIN. Okay? So those won't be too big. It's the next step beyond it is what these mobile pay. And you've seen them. They're used all over Europe. You've seen them at different gas stations. They have a little, looks like a Wi-Fi logo on the card reader. Instead of sliding your card, you just slide it by it. Most of those will support Apple Pay. Currently, though, probably not Best Buy or Walmart because they're trying to devise their own way of doing this banking. And believe me, I'm a proponent of Walmart, but I think that they're going to have to join this because everybody else has. They're trying to cut down their credit card fees. Because the reason Visa and MasterCard and American Express put these ads out and say, spend this card, you'll look like a king if you use this one that has purple on it or whatever, because they make money on the transaction. I pay my credit cards off every month. They make no money on me except they make money on the transaction fee. I was a retailer. American Express used to charge 6%. Other retail cards charge 3%. That's right off the top of everything I sell. So luckily, Square has knocked that down. It's 2.7, less than that. But that's where they're making the money is on the transaction. So this doesn't circumvent that, but it makes it, since that's not going to happen, Apple's not going to become a bank. Apple only does the thing. They're not going to build a new credit card company. And so just like they didn't build a new music service.
Does Apple Pay require Wi-Fi or cell phone network to function? It's on the store in Winnemucca, Nevada that doesn't have that. It's not going to work.
Well, it's the store in Winnemucca has to have all credit card readers are connected by phone line or by internet. Most credit card readers are by phone line, and that would work on their end. But your device, your iPhone, is almost always connected. But I would think that's a good question, but I would think that it can store it without having to be connected to anything, because it'll generate it from there.
I'm sure there's places that are not connected out here.
Not if they take credit cards.
No,
guaranteed.
Where your phone isn't connected.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But the credit card on their end, I mean, you go to these art these art shows and things like that. They have a cellular credit card reader. Did you have a question back there, or were you just stretching? Okay. All right. Phew. We covered a lot. Apple Pay. How do we make the little Apple logo? Option Shift K. Okay. The recordings will be at kenspencer.com. Feel free to ask any questions away now. I'm sorry it went a little over. We can go through. Oh, there's all the places they're going to take it. Whole Foods. Go ahead, ask any questions. Oh, Uber's going to take it? Great. Don't take a taxi, use Uber. Yes?
If someone wants to, before the watch comes down, keep track of their steps, there's a real good free app called Move.
Yep.
Your steps, miles you through that day, calories you burn, and it's kind of a motivator.
Yeah, it's really good, and you can set goals, and you can set plateaus, and then you can go through and that's all built into the new health app, which I didn't cover it because there's new things happening with it, and we'll cover that when it does. And the health kit, I mean, like for instance with Kaiser and Sutter, you'll be able to give them your information right from your phone if you choose to. Remember, you still are very secure. If you go to apple.com, watch the films, they're incredible.